Pretty good.
Run a couple hundred miles this weekend.
There you go. Turn it down a little bit.
Yeah, we were standing in front of Notre Dame Cathedral where this nut job with a hammer attacked people
That's crazy.
Oh,
a day or two ago.
yeah.
We didn't see him. Glad.
Only gonna come from next.
We were walking down a street, just kind of walking down an avenue. All these police cars, vans, police vans lined up. Each one had like 6 to 8. There's national police. There's all these serious fully automatic weapons. Yeah. There was 11 of them.
Ready?
Ready.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a big audience.
know until you were talking about her. Someone else.
Oh, the one.
Start by rising for a moment of silent prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag in here.
And the pledge. Pledge allegiance
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is approval of the agenda.
To approve.
Second.
In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item is the mayor's report, and under this, we're having a Parks and Recreation proclamation.
Yes, sir. I will read that for us. This is whereas Parks and Recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Farragut, and whereas our parks and recreation are vital and important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of our citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. Whereas Parks and Recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas Parks and Recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local sales tax base, increased tourism, and the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. Whereas Parks and Recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and provide habitat for wildlife. And our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. Whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas Farragut recognizes the benefits derived from the Parks and Recreation resources. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Farragut Board of Mayor and Aldermen that July is recognized as Park and Recreation Month, and urge citizens to explore and enjoy the parks and recreation programs of the town of Farragut.
Thank you. I guess we need to approve this, right?
No?
No? Leave it as it is?
Yes, sir.
Everybody okay with it?
Absolutely.
Thank you. The next item is Citizens Forum.
Signed up.
Move to approval of minutes of May 25th.
I move to approve.
Discussion.
I'm abstaining because I was not present.
My memory serves me. Was I absent then?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So 2 abstentions. So any discussion of it? Then we still need to,
Vote.
for some of you
We
to,
need to vote. Just ask us and we'll vote.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Ordinances, first reading, ordinance 17-09, ordinance to establish the fiscal year 2018 budget for the general fund, state street aid, capital investments fund, equipment replacement fund, and insurance fund budgets of the town of Farragut, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018.
Thank you, Mayor. As usual, I'm going to start getting a complex every year. We have a packed house for the budget and first reading of the ordinance this year. And as I say every year, it's one of the most important things this Board of Mayor and Aldermen does is approve the budget that actually allocates where all of our priorities are and our expenditures are going to be for the year. We start every year during our budget process, usually around January. This year was no different. We start with our department heads. We meet as a group. We discuss the priorities of the town based on the vision of our town. It's a distinctive residential community. It's our history, the beauty of natural and built, high-quality residential choices, multiple activity centers, convenient living, outstanding recreational opportunities, and community spirit that make us distinctive. We always look at that vision because that's what we're trying to achieve is the vision the board laid out for us a few years ago, and then also break it down by our goals. Our goals we talk about are maintaining a financially sound town, providing excellent services, strengthening our local economy, developing the town's historic assets, facilitate future growth, development, and redevelopment, and expanding our leisure amenities, both venues and programs. Once the department heads and us meet, we get our priorities in place, and we give those to the board, and we have a retreat each year where the board then prioritizes what you'd like to see based on everything that we need to get accomplished over this next fiscal year. The things that the board voted on to move forward with this year, the top priority things were a tourism development plan and funding for that, a road improvement prioritization, funding for that. Some high priority items were our stormwater infrastructure assessment and Campbell Station Inn Phase 1. And then lower priority was McPhee Park expansion and the design of that project. Of those items, the one that is still a little bit up in the air at this point is our tourism development plan. There is some, I would call it seed money in the budget to continue doing some marketing for this next year, but we're still waiting on getting our marketing plan back from our consultant. And as soon as we can do that and get our full phasing of that plan in, then we'll come back to the board later on this fiscal year to determine how you'd like to fund that program. For the management agenda that you prioritized this year, our top priority items were our information technology department and getting funding to upgrade that, our Union Road improvements, starting the design of that project. Also, our high priority items were reviewing our organizational structure and staffing levels, and also looking at developing a youth council. Our moderate priority items were our policies and ordinances for updating our comprehensive land use plan and our architectural design standards, as well as completing our signal timing project, which is a CMAQ grant. So every year, once we got through that, we had several workshops with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen talking about many different items throughout the year. The main thing we always turn to, though, is what we think our revenue stream is going to be. Our revenues this year we're projecting at $10.5 million, which is a 5.1% increase over FY17. The majority of our revenues come from local sales taxes. This is true, has been true of the town ever since its founding, as we do not have municipal property taxes, so we really rely on our local sales tax base to fund our government operations. For this year at FY 2017, we're running about 2.5% above last year's numbers. For our budget, we project around a 6.2% increase from our budgeted numbers from last year for $6 million total in FY 2018. Our second largest source of revenue comes from state shared taxes. If you recall, a lot of discussion happened this year at the state level around the Improve Act. The Improve Act raised gas taxes around the state starting July 1st, but then it lowered sales taxes on food across the state as well. So those both are in this revenue stream that you see before you. If we compare what we got last year in the Improve Act for just state street aid funds, this year we're looking at getting $33.20. Last year we received $28, and this is all on a per capita basis. That alone would have increased our revenues $117,000. At the same token, our general fund revenue, which is a separate fund altogether from state street aid, we went down from $95.30 to $94.25 in the FY18 budget. Again, that's a decrease of $23,730. But overall, when you look at the total per capita, we increased those numbers from $123.30 in FY17 to $127.45 for a total of $2.8 million budgeted for this year's budget. Overall, we project an increase in this fund of around $93,790 for next year. A next large source of funding for the town is the Hall income tax. Again, this was also part of the Improve Act. Hall income tax is money that are received from investment income in the state of Tennessee. That Hall's tax is going away. This year, it will have the first year of it reducing by 17% over last year. As you can see from FY17, we received a little over $1.1 million in revenue from that source. We always budget that very low because it really is determining on investment income, how well the markets do that year. But second of all the money that we have received this past year, we put directly into our capital investment program. Knowing that this fund is going away, I have not allocated it for operational purposes, but more for capital purposes, because in 3 years it is going to go away. So again, this year we've allocated $400,000, and all the money that's allocated in our budget has been transferred over to the CIP. For wholesale taxes, this includes beer, liquor, and mixed drink. This is a relatively flat tax for us. It grows a little bit each year. This year we're seeing a slight gain with the changes that have occurred at the state level regarding the mixed drink and allowing wine in grocery stores. So we've allocated a 6% increase over budget from last year to around $1.16 million in revenues for wholesale taxes. For intergovernmental, this includes mostly cable TV franchise and telecommunications tax, and then TVA gross receipts that we get from Tennessee Valley Authority. Again, this is also a relatively stable tax, and we've estimated $601,400 for FY18. Our building permit and license revenue, this is one of those streams of revenue that really is dependent on the economy and how well we're doing in the economy. And truly, a lot of it has to depend on how much commercial activity we have in town along with the residential activity. We've been relatively stable in residential activity the last 3 or 4 years. The commercial is some that goes up and down just depending on what projects are out there and what land's available. For this year, we're estimating $344,000 by the end of FY17. And then we're proposing $300,000 in the budget for FY18. For our revenue sources, if you look at everything overall, 57% of our revenue comes from sales tax, 17% comes from our state shared revenues that we talked about a moment ago, and 11% comes from our wholesale drink tax. Moving on to expenditures, obviously we look at the revenues. We ask our department heads to look at each of their budgets and determine what they need for their department to operate and continue to provide the services that we provide to our citizens each and every day. This next year we're looking at a overall budget of $6.9 million in expenditures. That's a total increase of around $159,000 over FY17. For a total revenue over expenditures at the end of the year of $3.6 million. Our personnel and operating costs, we wanted to show you kind of a overall look at that over the course of the last 10 fiscal years. It's also been relatively stable over that period of time, where it has just slightly increased on a gradual basis. This next year, we're looking at a total percentage of personnel to operating cost of 63% personnel cost, 37% operating. Just to give a little bit of a comparison to that, just 3 years ago, we were at 60% personnel cost to 40% operating. It's been a pretty consistent number for us over the last few years. As well, we look at personnel cost when it comes to salary versus benefits. And again, the salary this year, we're looking at 73% of our personal costs goes to salary and 27% goes to benefits. And again, that's also a very stable number for us. It doesn't fluctuate much more than 1 or 2% on either end of that every year. Overall, we are looking at adding some new programs and services to the budget this year. We talked about these in some workshops previously, but we're looking at adding a building official to the community development department as well as a planner 1 position. In our public works department, we're looking at adding a maintenance operator position as well. And then for IT upgrades, as we look through our strategic plan for IT, we're looking at adding enterprise software to that to make us more efficient as a town government overall. So total cost of all those upgrades for the town this year will be $286,128. In that, we've also included a 2% COLA, a cost of living adjustment for employees, and then on top of that, a 0 to 3% merit depending on their salaries of the employees. That all has to do with the fact that we're charging, we had to change health insurance carriers this year for the first time. And because of that increased cost, we were going to implement charging employees $100 a month in premiums for family coverage only. So looking at those total cost increases, we wanted to try to do everything we could in order to minimize that cost on the employee if they do need to elect that family coverage. Looking overall at our revenues over expenditures with a 10-year history, you can see from the green bar chart that our revenues have definitely exceeded our expenditures over the last decade. In fact, if we look at revenues, they're up 61% over that 10-year period of time, and our expenditures are up 47%. I think a key thing to think about is how much we spend and then how much we save at the end of each year. And so if you look at our available fund balance, that has grown from $2.7 million in FY 2011 to $9.9 million in FY 18. So I think the Board of Mayor and Aldermen has done a fabulous job in making sure we are prudent with our dollars and making sure we're spending them wisely. Our next big fund is the capital investment program. This is what our 5-year plan is to look at projects, major projects, anything over $25,000 that we need to do around town. We break this down into general government projects, parks projects, and engineering projects. For this year, in our budget, we're looking at a total of $5,125,000 in projects. I'm going to run through some of these with you just real quick. Every year we put away $500,000 in land acquisition, and again this year you're going to see where we're spending quite a bit of that money. Smith Road Greenway, we've added that as a project this year. Also the north-south connector for a culvert underneath Kingston Pike. And also Campbell Station Inn site improvements we put in there at $2 million. And a new one we've added this year for continuous years is ADA improvements. That's something that we are required to do by the federal government, and so we have to start putting money away to fix many of the things that we may have around town, public infrastructure-wise, that the public uses to make sure those are ADA compliant. On our park side, we're looking at designing the McPhee Park, next phase of the McPhee Park expansion. I know the board had a recent workshop on the master plan for that, which we will certainly have more discussions about. And then also we're looking at resurfacing the McPhee Park playground surface, as well as finishing up the Mayor Bob Leonard Park turf improvements as well. Finally, in engineering projects, we have some money allocated for the Watt Road Kingston Pike intersection. That's a TDOT funded project that we're splitting with them. We anticipate that being a little bit more in our budget that we need to put away. Also, Kingston Pike sidewalk, that's also a TDOT project that they will be letting for us, but that's the additional dollars to get that constructed this next fiscal year. We also have Union Road improvements in there, and this is to buy the right-of-way. We're already under design right now, so this additional dollars would be to buy right-of-way in FY18. We also had to include some money for Concord Road lighting. That is a TDOT project, but it's going to be a little bit more money than we had originally given to TDOT for the lighting to get that new lighting in place. We have signal system upgrades of $165,000 for the initial design of that, and that's 100% funded through TDOT. We also have Virtue Road Phase 1, which is the Harville property, looking at completing that from Turkey Creek, from just north of Sugarwood down to the curve right there past the Harville property. And that would be for $425,000 for design of that project. So again, total outstanding projects that we have is $2.9 million. Those are carryover projects that we're currently working on for a total of $8,094,301 in our CIP. Wanted to give you a little bit of idea about just the funding of our CIP. Our total 5-year expenditures, obviously we only budget for the year that we're in. So the FY18 year is the one we actually allocate the dollars for. The other 4 are planning years, so they could change, obviously depending on priorities, depending on money, depending on a lot of different factors. But what we have planned right now is a total CIP expenditures over the next 5 years of $27.6 million. Of that, we would plan on transferring from the general fund $12.5 million, $12.5 million, that we would plan on transferring from the general fund. To give you a little perspective, over the last 5 years, prior 5 years, we've already transferred $14.5 million from the general fund into the CIP fund. So overall, if you look at a 10-year window, it looks like the general fund would be transferring around $27 million in funding to the CIP. Next up is our State Street Aid Fund. Our State Street Aid Fund, again, is what we used to repave our streets and our roads here in town. We also use it for guardrail enhancements, street striping, and any other kind of traffic calming or street maintenance that we may have to do. This year, we are adding around $300,000 in expenditures in order to do one project, and that is the Parkside Drive from everything along from Campbell Station Road all the way to the town limits. That includes quite a few lanes to do, and that's a pretty big project for us. So we'll be using all of that to repave that section of Parkside.
How often do we repave that?
We have not repaved it since it was put in place, and that's been at least 16 years, 17 years.
Is that about what we look at, about 16, 17, 15 to 20 years?
It all depends on where it's at and how much traffic volume you get on that. And obviously Parkside gets quite a bit of traffic volume in that area. But Daryl and his crew and engineering, they all go out each year and they look at our streets and review them and determine which ones are kind of top priority streets. And this year coming up, not this summer, but it'll probably be next summer, we'll be looking at repaving those streets at that point. This year also, you can see from the State Street Aid Fund that we have an additional little over $120,000 allocated to that. Again, that is additional revenue from the Improve Act that we saw from the dollars that go towards that. And then the following year, we should see even more additional dollars from that as they ramp up the tax structure for the Improve Act and the gas tax that goes along with that. Moving on to fund balance, this is what we have as of the end of May of 2017. A little over $7.6 million in our general fund, our State Street Aid Fund at $1.3 million, our insurance fund at $100,000, our capital fund at $12.3 million, and our equipment fund at $723,000. If you look at our true ending fund balance for CIP, right now it's probably going to be around $6.2 million at the end of the fiscal year. And of that, we've got about $3.5 million in assigned fund balance and $2.9 million in land and $580,000 in greenways. I'd like to thank the BMA for all your hard work and all our workshops that we had to do this year for our budget. I'd also like to thank all the department heads for all their hard work in getting our budgets through and answering all the questions that we had for them to try to make sure that we had everything proper in the budget. And most importantly, thank Allison and her staff for doing the budget and getting us where we are today. So with that, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions and see where we need to go from there.
I have one minor item I'd like to
Can
bring
we
to
make a
the,
motion first? Make a motion first so that,
need a motion for this? You know, I was going to talk about the innovation.
Approve. Discussion on a topic we do.
Okay.
So I move that we approve the ordinance to establish fiscal year 2018 budget for the general fund, first reading.
Second.
Minor item I want to bring to the attention of the board. Under the blue tab, next to the last page, economic development. On the back side of that page, there are 3 items listed. Dogwood Arts Festival and New Sentinel Golf Tournament, which we discussed at our workshop on grants. The third item, Innovation Valley, was not discussed at that time. Brought that to the attention of the EDAC at the meeting yesterday, which I'm a liaison for, and there was some brief discussion, and they unanimously voted in favor of approving that $10,000. So that's all I've got.
I'd like to go back two pages to the non-departmental, where the grants are proposed, under the community school grants. I think that this year, I think we need to take out the teacher recognition. I'm not sure that I want to start a new grant for the schools. I'm not sure that teacher recognition, although you will not find a bigger defender of teachers than I. They've been beat up over the last couple of years. I'm not sure that the town of Farragut should be funding a teacher recognition grant. I think that I would prefer to hold out and see if we can do something that is more applicable to the kids, maybe paying for supplies or starting a fund that would do supplies. But we don't know how the Improve Act is going to hit our bottom line, so I'm not sure that I want to start a new grant right now. So I'd like to remove that $8,500. I don't know how we do that. Do we do amended budget for that? There's another thing I wanted to bring up too. So go ahead, tell us how we're going to do that.
Well,
Did that come to our attention after our workshop? Because I don't remember discussing that.
that was Kirsten Pennycuff Trent came to the board. I can't remember if it was a couple of workshops ago or a couple of meetings
during our grant
ago.
workshop.
It was
Yes.
during the grant
Yeah,
workshop?
and she spoke last, and then I said I would touch base with Susan Horn. She sent us a letter the day after, because I wanted to know how they were dealing with the, how they were determining who the teachers of the years were, and I had the same concern then. I would rather see something that directly impacts at least the children of the residents of Farragut than to give it right to teachers. I didn't think that would be a good use of our money.
So this money's not replacing something. This is
adding to. It would be $500. I think the budget was 17. They had 17 Teachers of the Year awards last year for the various schools. Their idea was to give $500 to each of those teachers. So it's not that the committee would be choosing who gets them, but it would be this typical education process that they go through to choose their Teachers of the Year, and this would be on top of whatever the county does for them from the town of Farragut.
And this is only for the Farragut schools, and is it for all 5 schools?
It can be
Four
for all
schools, right?
5. It can be for 4. It can be for however many you like to do. You could limit it to 1 per school. It's a number of different ways you could do it if you wanted to. But the way the committee has recommended is for all 5 schools that we currently fund. Of course, in our budget this year as well, we have eliminated the funding for Hardin Valley Academy as well as their foundation as well.
Well, I have to agree with Louise on that. I think we need to kind of focus on the student end as opposed to the teacher end.
If y'all like to make a motion, what we can do is make some amended motions on each of these items as they come up, or you can talk through all the issues and talk through all the things you have, and then vote on everything at once as an amended motion, and then we can come back to the original motion of the entire budget.
All right, because there's another thing I wanted to talk about. Are you guys okay with what we just spoke about? We'll vote on it. I hope let me expand on it a little bit. Each year, teachers spend a lot of their own money to buy supplies for their classrooms, from kindergarten straight up to the high school. those supplies directly impact the education of the children in those classrooms. If we're going to start a new program, I would rather see something where if we're going to do something, supplementing that, because it is having a direct impact on our kids, as opposed to providing funding, an award to a teacher, which is very nice and it's a good idea. I'm just not sure that it's appropriate for us to be doing that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on that idea. But that's something that I think we need to hash out at a later time.
Okay, my comment is we don't have another program right now, so this would at least help 17 teachers and their students. Or if we take
Not necessarily their students. This is for the teachers. This is $500 going to the teacher. For the teacher to do, she doesn't have to spend it in the classroom. It's for the teacher's it's a personal reward to the teacher.
Okay, I understood it to be used for that class.
No, it's not.
Okay.
So the next thing I'm bringing up is I went through our budget and I just divided what the expenditure was by the entire our budget and then I organized percentage-wise what we're spending. There's a saying I've been hearing a lot lately: don't tell me what you value, show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value. And so Public Works is where we spend most of our money, which I believe is for Farragut, that's the correct place for it to be. We pride ourselves on keeping our town beautiful and in good repair and clean and organized. And Bud does a great job with that. Want to guess how much of our budget is Public Works? 26.24%. And then Parks and Leisure is next at 14%. Community Development, Administration, and Engineering come behind that. So that makes sense to me. I also did it because I wanted to figure out how much we were spending in economic development. Only 3.25%. Now that doesn't. I took out two things out of administration. I took strategic planning out of administration, and I took the tourism promotion advertisement out of PALS. It does not account for staff time. But for a organization or a government that is living off of basically local sales tax, that's not a lot. We're not spending a lot of money in economic development. I'm not saying that we should be. We should just go spend money willy-nilly, but we aren't spending a lot. So just so you all kind of know where that falls in place.
And I think that's going to change real soon once we get that Girls on a Roof report back. So.
But the other thing I wanted to discuss was, in keeping in mind that Public Works is so important to us. In the original request from Public Works, Mr. McKelvey requested 2 individuals, and we only gave him 1. And I know that they got slammed hard with these recent storms. And I'm wondering if we want to talk about either maybe putting in that extra person. I think it came to, what was it, $50,000 total to add that additional person. Is that correct?
It's right around 50,000, yes, ma'am.
Or do we want to do half a year? I know that they're very stressed over there, and they have an aging group over there. So what are your guys' feelings on that?
Well, I guess my question is, we decided to hire 1, and then we were going to evaluate over a certain period of time and decide if we needed that second person. What was your time frame on when we would consider the second person? Did we have a time frame?
No, sir. I think there was no time frame. I think, though, what I was looking at strictly was how much we were growing our budget each year. So I was just wanting to make sure that we were logical in our approach to that. So that's why we only included 1 for this year. I think Mr. McKelvey would certainly love to have 2. I think if the board is okay with adding that position back to the budget, I certainly think we can handle that in our budget. That's not an issue. My concerns about it were just strictly looking at how much our budget grows each and every year.
And I understand that. And I would love to, Mr. McKelvey, could you come up and just give us an idea of how far behind you guys are in. I know with the storms, everything gets backed up.
My question also is, have you hired that person?
No, he can't, not until
Not until
budget
July
pass the
1st.
budget, yeah.
Yeah, the budget would have to be passed after July 1st, was when we would initiate that. The original request was 2 people. David and I talked about it, and for budget purposes, he wanted to cut it down to 1, and I told him I respected his decision, to do that. He does the finances. And this is no disrespect to his decision or my decision. I'm just going to tell you that, we had done a study, and it took 2.4 employees just to cover sick and annual leave. So for 1 year, last year, the study showed it took 2.4 men to replace 1. We're doing better on the sick leave side of that this year. I can't eliminate it completely, but we're doing a lot better in that because we've enforced some other rules and regulations on sick leave. But as far as our workload is not getting any lighter, and we're still behind. And each one of these events that happens, that's what I tell David. We catching up, and then we get a storm. We have to come in on a Sunday, which doesn't hurt us Monday through Friday, but we're still. Today, there's some other trees that we didn't know about, and we're out. So we spent about 3.5 days this week with 4 guys cleaning up, trees and stuff like that from the storm. And then again, we put a target. We built a beautiful landscape area out the interstate and put a bullseye on it. So somebody went through it again this past weekend. So we're out there trying to straighten that up. This is the second time in a month and a half, about 6 weeks, that we've had to rebuild one of the landscape areas out there.
Malicious, or is it?
Pardon?
The last one was a drunk driver. Was this
Yes,
recent
we
one?
don't have the report on this one yet. We're still waiting on the report on this one. But they took out some of the interstate signs and some of our trees and bushes. So, and then right before that, somebody took out one of the islands in front of Wyndham Hall from one end to the other. And so that took an entire week of digging out, replacing, and putting back. So things like that, we don't figure into our workload, and then that puts us behind. Plus, we've had a tremendous amount of turnover in the last 2 years. We've replaced probably half the staff in the last 2 years. And training for them also, you can't just send them out there. You got to send people with them that knows what they're doing. So that slowed us down. We're working our way back up. I do have some additional summer help that David gave us this year. Typically we get 4. I've got 5 this year. And I hired 2 of them for a long term. Instead of school kids from May to August, I've got 2 that are going to stay here till October, November, which should help us. But again, they're limited in what they can do. So, but the workload never gets any shorter, and we continue to add facilities, anything that we add in the town of Farragut, which will be coming on in the next couple years, especially we add, workload. So last year at the end of the year in December, we were right at 2 months behind. That just gives you a feel. We've caught up with some of that, but we're not completely caught up yet. So
I know that this is we run so leanly that a lot of times our staff is stressed out, in not just Public Works Department, but in elsewhere, and it's a fine line we walk where we're trying to make sure that we certainly want to spend our money in a responsible manner, but if we're stressing out our public works to the point that there's so much turnover, we're going to end up losing the end. It's the projects that aren't done or the delay, and then how that appears, and that's something we need to consider. I would like to add this second position, but obviously I'm just one vote.
Well, first of all, I got to compliment the Public Works Department, you and the staff, for what a great job you do. And we don't want that to fall behind any further than it is. So I have to agree with Louise. I'm for the second person.
Same here.
For that too.
So, Bud, Is this, because it seemed like we had the same people for a long, long time, and is this increased turnover, is this something relatively new? What do you attribute it to?
I did not mention the aging staff that we have, but we just did our evaluations, for the year, and each one of the guys, I find out how long they've been here, and we've got an aging public works staff that they work hard every day, but they are getting older. And so, some of them are slow down. I've got one guy who we have to pick and choose what he does. And so it creates a situation with age. The turnover that we've had a couple of people who had outside jobs, and decided they wanted to move into that realm. And they've actually called us back and wanted to come back after they found out the outside world wasn't all it cracked up to be. We've had some people that we've had to terminate. They just weren't meeting our expectations or other issues that were going on. And some of them, we had one that left here recently, a real good employee. I think he went for $1 an hour to a facility in Maryville to build metal cabinets. There's all different aspects of it, but the work is very labor intensive. I mean, if you can imagine, I hired a summer guy, and he lasted, one of my longer term summer guys, he lasted 2 days this year. We gave him weed eater one day, and he used it for 8 hours and said, that I'm not doing this. So, but this is what the guys do day in and day out. Everything that we do, whether it's this facility or one of the parks, I mean, it's mowed every single week, weed eated every single week, weeds pulled, blown, and then on top of everything else that we have to do. That's a weekly thing from March until November. Right away, guys, same thing. I mean, when the mowing starts, the mowing is the main thing that we do in the summer months. We still do a lot of other things, but that's our main concentration that we have to, because if you don't, it'll go bad in a hurry. So,
Can you hire the ones back that left and wanted to come back? Is that policy that you don't do that, or?
I don't have a policy that I don't do that, but David and I discuss many topics in our discussion as to, you have somebody who worked here for 8 years, and you want to hire them back. Well, I didn't put in the budget to hire them back at what they left at.
Oh, okay.
So if you hire them back, I got to bring them back in an entry position. Well, they're not going to be happy with that, because they're going to do the same work they were doing for 8 years, and they're going to be doing it for $4 less an hour, and they're not going to be happy with it. It's when I budget for a
Entry level.
entry-level
Yes.
position, and that's what the $50,000 is.
Okay, thank you.
So, we've had some that we haven't had any problems with whatsoever, but we have some issues with some other ones that wanted to come back. I don't want to get into any of that, but
The $50,000 that we would budget, $29,000 is roughly the salary. Around 15 or so thousand, we budget for full family coverage. So if the employee does not take full family coverage, then certainly that cost would be lower to the town. But we do budget for the entire family coverage, along with all the supplies, materials, uniforms that they would need.
Okay, I'm on board.
Right. So to make the motion, I move to amend the budget to remove the teacher recognition program and to add the additional personnel. Is that sufficient?
Personnel in the public works,
In public
additional
works.
maintenance operator in public
Yes.
works.
Yes.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, yeah.
All in favor? Or
Aye.
do you want to discuss?
I don't need to discuss anymore. Does anybody else?
I have nothing else.
Nothing else.
Anything else?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes.
Are there any other amendments that the board would like to make to the budget before you vote on the main budget?
Are we funding our infrastructure review evaluation, how's that being funded, and what are we allowing for that?
Gary Palmer has been working on that. Maybe give us an update, Gary.
Excuse me. We've been working for the past couple months with UT, going back and forth with them on the contract issues. I think we've allocated $50,000 for this year. We probably won't get started with that until the next fiscal year, so I think we're going to keep that $50,000 in there. But we should have a contract to the board either at the next meeting or the meeting after that. So we'll be getting going on the inventory hopefully by mid-July, August.
Okay, good.
That's all I had. So now we just need to vote on the,
Motion of
All right.
the of actual first reading of the ordinance.
I'll make a motion that we approve the first reading of the ordinance to establish fiscal year 2018 budget for the general fund as amended.
Second.
Any discussion?
no.
I have none.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Did the
We're going to do the committee.
appointments, I think, but
No, we gotta,
And we got the other.
we gotta,
Yeah.
And then,
Okay. The Arts Council, we have Mary Agnes Schaefer and Sandra Dean. Beautification Committee, we have Claire Instinct, Jerry Janot, Miriam McGill, Kathy Peer, and Cynthia Galantine. Board of Zoning Appeals is Mike Wilson. Economic Development Advisory Committee is Miriam McGill, Christine Horwag, Ashley Schaefer, and Jeremiah Webb. The Museum Advisory Committee is Libby Haynes, Steve Stowe, Carolyn Sinclair, Lou LaMarche, and Carolyn Coker. Parks and Athletics Council is Loretta Bradley, Augie D. Giovanni, Noel Poindexter, Claire Zachary, Margie Wilburn, and Bob Brock will be appointed to the one-year appointment. The Personnel Committee is Gary Schmitz, John Underwood, Jane Perry, and John Nels. Plumbing Gas Mechanical is Chris Duncan, Nicholas Moskal, and Wes Tankersley. School Liaison Committee is Kristen Pennycuff Trent and Alice Thornton. Stormwater Advisory Committee, the FMPC appointee is Ed Whiting. The professional engineer is Violet Frudenberg. The at-large member is Valerie Elton, and the at-large member, the one-year appointment, is Robert Hill. Visual Resources Review Board is Marty Lehman, Cynthia Hollyfield, Jeannie Stowe, Randy Armstrong, and Kayvon Kumarsi. The one-year appointment, yes. Thank you.
approve the fiscal year 2018 committee appointments.
Second.
discussion. No,
No.
Done,
you vote then.
ready.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. I guess it takes us down to the town administrator's report.
Mayor, I have nothing to report tonight.
Anybody else have anything to report? If you do,
Oh, what's, is it this Friday is it next Friday is the music in the park?
Lawn chairs.
Lawn chair series.
Next Friday night.
Yes, next Friday night.
6:30? That's a fun event.
Park, Founders Park on
Founders
Campbell
Park.
Station Road.
Yeah.
all right, before we adjourn, I do have something that's bothering me that I want to talk about. And it simply is speeding. Speeding on Kingston Pike between Watt Road and, all the way all the way through, I think. But everybody's speeding, and it is really getting to be very dangerous. Now, if you want a good example, David showed me one yesterday, not yesterday, but the other day. We have the red light cameras, and they are ticketing people who are running red lights, right? We all know that. But you don't know that the those cameras are also checking to what the speed is. Who wants to venture a guess as to what is the highest rate of travel anybody has been caught with a camera?
I think the board knows, Mayor, but
Yeah.
that may be for the audience.
The board knows it. See if there's someone in the audience might venture to guess.
Go ahead,
All right.
John.
Yeah, let's hear out here.
I already know the answer. That's not fair.
Shout it out. We ruined some of your answers the other night.
Yes.
104 miles an hour.
104 miles per hour. Is that absurd
beat
or
that.
what?
Previous speed was 88, I believe, so that topped the previous.
And what day of the week was that, too?
I'm not sure the day of the week, but it was at night. It
There was
in
someone
the
at
evening.
the intersection, though, that pulled through that intersection right after that guy went through, so that could have been really disastrous. I will agree, we have a pervasive speeding problem. It's not just on Kingston Pike. It's on every road you travel in our community. It's in our neighborhoods, it's on our collectors, it's on our arterials. And I asked Mr. Smith to put some information together with some of our collector roads that we've improved, and trying to get an idea of what the 85 percentile is. When he compiles that, I'd really love to have a community conversation about what's going on and ways that we could work through trying to slow down our roads. Because if we ever want to be a walkable community, if we're putting all these sidewalks in that no one feels safe using because everybody's driving too fast. And I don't think I've ever seen someone ride a bike on Campbell Station Road, because people travel at 55, 60 miles per hour. And if you're driving more than 45, one of the trainings we went to, anything over 45, they do not suggest that you have bike lanes on those roads. So we have some very unsafe roads. A lot of them, you feel, I know when I get on Everett Road, I can look down, I can feel like I'm doing the speed limit, and the speed limit on that road is 30 miles per hour, and you naturally go about 40, 45. The 85 percentile on that road is 44 miles per hour. When we're designing our roads to go that fast, that's what we're going to get. And so we need to start being mindful about how we're designing our roads, how we're designing some traffic calming features into the roads. We can't rely on having the police come and monitor speed to get people to slow down, although that might be an aspect that we need to look into. That can't be how we're designing our roads. So it's a bigger issue than
Well,
just
the-
Kingston
The
Pike.
straightaway road is the worst.
Yep. It's a,
So you
well,
put just a little
Yep.
curly in there and solves the problem.
we are starting to do that.
But then we're defeating the purpose of improving the road if we make it.
Well, we need to make it a multimodal road. We need to start considering not just the cars, but the other people, the people that are going to walk on the sidewalks, perhaps the families that are going to ride their bicycles. If we're going to embrace complete streets, we have to design our roads to embrace all of the users of that thoroughfare, not just cars.
So what are you suggesting?
Well, some of the most recent, I'll go in on that, Bob. Some of the most recent classes that quite a few of us have been to, including Mark and Louise, myself, Ron, there's other towns that had the same problem we have, and they've taken measures to slow people down. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. And, there's road diets, there's roundabouts.
The roundabouts are very,
There's a lot of, staging your red lights is another way to do it. There's a lot of things that you can do that will get the speed down without putting speed humps or something like that in you.
We just approved a neighborhood in between, the one that's beside Sailview.
Yeah, Easton Park, yeah.
His original intention was to have a road going straight down, and it's a hill. And we managed to convince them to put in design a curve. And then even in that curvature, there's a bit of a bow out so that it's almost like a mini circle. it's going to cause this person to have to slow down, and so that they're not flying down the hill. So there's ways that you can design the road, even in our neighborhoods, so that they're not high-speed thoroughfares. But we have to start being really thoughtful about it. We really need to engage the public that are actually using those roads to tell us where's the speeding issues. When Union Road is, I'm about to have a conversation about Union Road, which once I announce it, I'll get you guys. I would hope that you would attend. But we're talking about maybe having a circle in front of Fox Run and a circle in front of the Ivy property. A roundabout, in a way to at least, because when people come out from Saddle Ridge and come over that bridge, it's a straightaway, and you can see them. As soon as they come out of that turn, they are flying. And when you ask the residents, hey, what's going on here? Where are the problems? We can kind of be proactive about how we design things to slow people down. So it's about having conversations and starting to be a little bit more proactive about our road design.
There's a good example, Bob. If you go up on Bob Kirby and Bob Gray, you can look at the two roundabouts up there. And these both of these intersections had blind hills. And a lot of,
Out in Knox County?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you
Off Dutchtown Road there.
off Dutchtown.
I haven't been down to Bob Gray in
But,
several years.
and these are off-camber roundabouts as well. They're not just flat roundabouts like what you have at Concord Road or on McPhee Road. These are at an angle. They're both intersections were very dangerous. They put those in, and now you don't have that blind anymore because somebody's going around the curve instead of coming right at you. It gives you time to react. So and it's also slowing them down.
Well, I'll just say this. If you've ever been hit on by a drunk person, you would never look at these issues in the same way again.
Yeah, it took me 16 weeks to recover when it happened to me. It took my wife longer than that when it happened to her.
If there's no other non-business, then we are adjourned.
Robbie, I got a question for you. When you had a deputy a few months back out on McPhee Road, there was a motorcycle, right, ticket.